Welcome to One Shots, a Dum-Dums and Dice podcast where professional voiceover actors and improvisers tackle one-shot stories created in a variety of hit RPGs. I'm your host, DJ One Shot 2.0, and I'm here to welcome you to Wrath and Glory, Traitor's Hymn, an introduction to Warhammer 40k's Wrath and Glory RPG. This arc features our GM Tom McGee and players Ryan LaPlante, Borovic, and special guest Spencer Hipwell. What will happen when the Dum-Dums try a new TTRPG set in the grim darkness of the far future? Nobody knows, cause it's One Shots, Wrath and Glory Edition.
These are strange days in the Gilead sector. Having been cut off from the Imperium by the Great Rift, the planets of the Gilead system have struggled to survive against the impending chaos, both from outside and, of course, from within. Any planets cut off from the Emperor's light suffer a similar fate. Being left to their own devices is not great in the greater scheme of the Imperium or the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, where there's only war. Luckily, or unluckily, depending on who you ask in the sector, the famed, powerful rogue trader Jakel Voronius has brought a flotilla across the Great Rift. Voronius is wealthy, charismatic, powerful, very capable, and he has brought with him all manner of support for the sector, both in terms of missionaries hoping to establish a foothold for the Emperor's Light yet again, Adeptus Astartes coming with new Primaris Marines to reinforce their brethren who are cut off in the sector, as well as all manner of people either looking to escape the Imperium to make a new start in the new sector, or hoping to be heroes of a conflict that doesn't involve crusading against actual forces of chaos, but just kind of showing up. However, this relief effort was severely impeded by the aforementioned Great Rift. Traveling through warp is dangerous in the best of times. Traveling through the Great Rift is a nightmare in the best of times. And the corrupting powers of chaos badly damaged and battered the fleet. There were tremendous losses, tremendous battles, much excitement, very wow. And the remainder of the flotilla has arrived in no shape to properly push back the forces of chaos, but rather to merely help Gilead endure them, which is where we find ourselves as agents of Jakel Voronius, who has hired each of you, probably by reaching out to your various sects, to ensure that the Herald Voronius, a luxury transport that has recently departed from Gilead Primaris, the sort of not home planet, but the center of power, planetary center of power in the sector, to the Ducal Circlet, his sort of capital ship, as well as the flotilla proper. So the three of you have been in transport for several days since the ship left port from Gilead Primaris, with a variety of VIPs aboard this ship. You've been living in tremendous luxury. You're sleeping on bedding that is only a few decades old. You're eating food with spicing and flavor. It is deeply uncomfortable for all of you because these are luxuries that are outside of your personal experience, but also I think a little bit outside just knowing who each of you are. Somnus, you might be the only exception to this, but particularly for Dell and Spencer, these are outside of your character's comfort zone by quite a bit. This is meant for Lords of Terra. This isn't meant for like the servants of the Emperor. Just give me the paste that keeps me alive. That's good enough. Nevertheless, though, it is part of the experience, and the captain, Marcelin Galba, has insisted that only the finest is served to you, and that you make use of the ship's, all the ship's amenities, as long as there are no VIPs or actually important people using them. None of you have taken them up on that, but the offer has standed, and Galba has been very insistent. All of you have come with your own agendas, with your own backstory. For those of you watching and listening, highly recommend you wreck out our Session 0.
Psych and Lacribe.
Yeah. I also passed through the Great Rift to get here to record today. It was the 401. Check out our Session 0 to learn a little bit more about who these folks are and our backstories. But of course, all that will become clear as the story goes. But in any case, all of you are here with your own agendas, with your own needs and your own missions. But mercifully or perhaps frustratingly, this has been a very quiet trip since you left Gilead Primaris. Aside from the captain kind of constantly getting in your business with requests. He is very proud of the ship. He's very proud to have you on board the ship. Most of you, Psyker, a little less so, but is very proud, Ron, and has been parading the VIPs around and really glad handing. You can think of Marcel and Galba as a bit of like a cruise ship captain or the captain of the Titanic, who's just constantly sitting at people's tables and entertaining and talking about the grandness of the ship. It rubs each of you the wrong way for different reasons, but he is very much not a military captain as you would understand Imperium military captains to be. He is the Carnival cruise director, making sure that the VIPs are comfortable, are aware of the amenities, and is around. But the good news is you've almost returned to the flotilla, which means that you can get back to your actual work, the actual kind of good work of the Imperium. Earning some favor from Jaquel Veronius is never the wrong call, and each of your respective sects will benefit from his patronage, since he is essentially the de facto ruler of the Gilead system now, being the only one with ships. All the planets have their own small ships and things, but he brought a fleet. So he has big guns and the ability to kind of take what he wants and needs when he wants it, as well as production of promethium, production of weapons, and production of food, which makes him a very, very powerful man indeed. And so, to celebrate the end of the journey and a successful voyage, the captain has requested all of your presence at a magnificent banquet in one of the Harold Veronius' 3 excellent banquet halls, which should tell you a little bit about the amount of egregious excess aboard this ship. And so, since it is the great banquet hall, it is customary to come dressed in finery, dressed in your best equipment. And again, he likes showing off that he has people with your skills aboard the ship. And so you've been asked to come dine with him and his guests. So you arrive to the great banquet hall, which is at the prow of the Harold Veronius. And you can tell that it was once very grand. There's ancient marble floors that have been worn smooth by footsteps over the generations. You can see huge sort of, there was a huge mural that would have once been very, very beautiful. It has been retouched over the years by less talented hands. If you've seen like that Jesus picture that got smudged out and repainted, it's not quite that bad, but it's in the ballpark. Restoration has not been up to snuff. There's a few kind of newer elements that stand out as very distinctly not part of the aesthetic. There are banners that indicate where the rogue trader and his fleet have visited. The Veronius dynasty goes back quite a long ways, so it's, throughout time. These seem to have been added fairly recently, and they're auto-woven. So compared to everything else that was very clearly handcrafted and passed down through generations, these are like the I printed these at home banners showing their journeys. In the room, you're immediately assaulted with the scent of spices and other such things, which are, again, deeply strange. I remember the first time I walked there's a chain called Bulk Barn here in Canada that just sells bulk spice and everything else. And when I was a kid, I walked in and it was like getting punched in the face because it was just, I'd never smelled so many different spices kind of all at once. And I think for all of you, it'd be similar because just, again, the smell of gore and viscera, fine, totally understood. Smell of promethium burning, great, love it. The smell of rich spices would be just really, really, I think, odd and uncomfortable. And there's a massive table set up. There are view screens showing a literal bird's eye view. There is an eagle in flight off the prow that has camera eyes that are feeding live feed of sort of the stars outside, passing very, very Star Trek view screen kind of situation. An insane thing to have in the 41st millennium where like the horrors of chaos are constantly outside, but like, sure, great, look at the stars. And the captain is clearly posed looking out these view screens to like foot up. Like in a real like Washington crossing the Delaware kind of look, hand in his jacket, Napoleon style. His guests are already seated, but as the doors open, he just turns and says, wonderful, wonderful. The agents of our esteemed Lord Veronius, welcome, 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 and congratulations on such a successful voyage. I am, of course, Captain Galba. He says this every time. Every time you've met him, he's announced himself if someone doesn't announce him. And he says, On behalf of the Held Veronius and our esteemed guests here, I want to thank you for making our little voyage here such a pleasant one in the face of all this uncertainty. It is nice to have a little breath of fresh air, a little refinement in the world, is it not? Please, come in, be seated. And immediately the three of you are kind of like rushed into the room by servants. Again, a very uncomfortable state for all of you. And shown to your seats. Looking around, there are a number of highfalutin VIP guests who you would recognize. There's the Lord Radovar Meldrake, who is a big walrus mustached looking guy. Think like a late era Winston Churchill type. He is packed into an old Astra Militarum outfit, but he carries the rare distinction of being a retired officer, one of the few who has survived his various campaigns and has made it to the retirement age. So just, again, like a mountain of a man. Sitting there, he raises a glass to the three of you as you sit down. And you notice that he has similar to all of you, he's in his sort of military dress from back in the day, but he doesn't have a las pistol or bolter on his hip. He has some kind of exotic weapon that is unfamiliar to you, which we can roll to see if you know more about later. You also see the enchanting and somewhat mysterious Alouette de Mornay. She is a figure that... Del, your character would definitely be aware of, but she's a preacher of the Ministerium. Oh. And she wears a beautiful, large headdress, sort of a massive, almost the height of like a bishop's hat, but kind of bisected in the middle with small baubles floating off the edges of it. And has huge sort of mechanisms around hanging down around her throat. Think like a bit of a Lupita Nyong'o vibe. So just like very sharp features, and just gives a slight nod of her head. Doesn't open her mouth, doesn't say anything. And you would know her as someone who's been performing in the perpetual opera aboard the ship. Her various Vox implants, unlike a lot of folks, she has several of them kind of built up around her chest and her throat. So it's almost like a massive adornment or collar of various mechanisms. But in the entire time you've been aboard the ship, you've never heard her speak a word because she saves her voice for the opera. And finally, there is the captain himself, who is not seated at the table. He's striking his power pose, and he ushers you to your seats, and kind of turns to Alouette and to Radovar and says, "My lord, my lady, forgive my manners. I haven't properly introduced you to our esteemed agents. These are the fine people who've been keeping you safe on our little voyage. And what a wonderful job they've done. You haven't even seen their work. They've been doing wonderful, excellent work behind the scenes, I assure you. But I think they can all probably speak for themselves. So allow me to introduce your esteemed protectors." And he turns his eyes first to you, Somnus. So Ryan, you're playing Somnus, the Psyker, as we talked about in our session 0. Mm-hmm. So he turns to look at you. What do you look like? What does he see as he turns his eyes upon you?
Somnus is in a buttoned-up leather coat with the symbols of the Administratum and the Imperial Psychana because he's a sanctioned psyker. He's got all the rules. He's got a number of implants in his head that are just kind of trailing around with plugs and wires extending into the collar of his jacket. He has a massive force stave that he uses like a staff as he's walking around with an aquil at the top of it, kind of wrapped in and a little bit frosty around it from whenever he's using it or touching it, that it channels his powers. He also has a blade and a las pistol on his hip, but people notice the staff. Everything else is second to that. He is, if you look at him, blind. His eyes are almost pure white because he has been soul-bound to the Emperor. He's also short. I would say he has strong Danny DeVito as Frank Reynolds energy. Just a short, ugly, rude man who is bald with just very long, almost frazzled hair. He has a grooming kit, and it's just for an elaborate mustache and this hair to be permed out. So it's almost creating like a foot-out orb around his head, perfectly out. And he is sitting at this table. And he is just tucking in, because being a psyker sucks and burns a lot of different kind of metabolism and physical mass. So normally he's stuck being gaunt and starving. This is just how many calories can he put in his body over a run on this ship. So he's already got a plate in front of him, and he is eating with his hands.
Amazing. And Galba kind of like looks at you doing that, looks at the fork and knife that are just stunningly polished, just, shimmering next to the plate. And then he returns his eyes to you, and with a bit of an apologetic look to specifically Alouette. You've got good facial hair game going, so the Lord is kind of on side, like you guys, game recognized game. But she is observing all of this with the studied patrician air of there's a fly in my soup, like it's just a real like oh my kind of situation. And Galba kind of clears his throat and says, Somnus, you are a psyker. That's fascinating and powerful and useful. And he is really selling the value of it. I should point out, even though there's just the three of you the three of them and then the three of you at the table, there are servants nearby, hangers on, but a lot of them are dressed in Navy outfits. He doesn't have, there's two butlers, but everyone else is dressed in proper uniforms, but are still serving you, which again is vaguely offensive, but whatever. But he wants it to feel like a proper captain's table situation. So anyway, they all nod. He's got a lot of sycophants nodding around him. And he says, I must say, in my vast experience being a captain out in these wilds, even a sanctioned psyker is a dangerous thing. May I ask, what duty did you do for Lord Veronius to earn his favor such as this? And as you consider it, you think back on recent events, and one of the things that's built into this module is flashback sequences to help us learn a little bit more about the characters and set them up for their adventure. So before you respond, Somnus, we flash back. You think back to the mission you were sent on that kind of got you wrapped up in all of this. First, I should ask, would you respond to him at all before you go down memory lane? I don't want to rob you of a character moment here.
I mean, we can come back to the character moment. Let's see what flavor this would add to it.
Amazing. So, you mentioned that your senses are kind of alight at all times. So you're immediately the smell of the spices that you're eating and everything else slowly fades and is instead replaced by the smell of ancient books, a familiar one to you in your various duties. And you think back to a recent mission you were sent on involving books. The archivist for the Herald Veronius, Arentia Caldo, had asked for your assistance attending an auction of old books, and it was a particularly odd duty. I mean, you've been asked to do a lot of weird stuff, but it was very strange when there were other she's the sort of the head librarian for the ship. She would have more knowledge about books than anyone else, but she insisted that you come along. Would you have had any resistance to that, or would you have just been like, let's go?
I'm here to do a gig, man. You want me to do this? Let's do this.
And she nods and says, yes, indeed, I do want you to do this gig, as you say. Excellent, please come with me. So you found yourself heading to the moon of Imperia, the richest moon of Gilead Primus. This is before the ship departed. And it's very distant from the sort of dank and dangerous streets of the Hive on the Primaris, and instead a little bit more elegant, if alien. Just being a moon smaller, everything's a little bit more elegant. And there was an estate sale occurring, an auction of the late Lady Maldonado, and there was a lot of talk on the ship. People were, anytime an important person dies, the Hive planet was, buzzing about it. It was good local gossip. And so you found yourself at her estate, and the auctioneer was, listing off various books. And you notice that Arentina was keeping careful eye on the auction as these things were coming up, but you could very much feel that she was also side-eyeing you as the various books were put up for auction. Let's go ahead and do a roll. This is our first roll.
Sure. Roll.
So the way rolls work in this game, it's a D6-based system. So we're going to roll 6-sided dice. Successes come on a 4, 5, or 6. They're called icons because on the special dice they have little skulls. So we're looking for icons in order to beat the difficulty check number. And to start with, we're not going to include any of the other dice mechanics. This is literally just to get our feet wet. Great. So you're going to be rolling a scholar check for me, please.
Okay.
So the way this works is you combine your attribute with your skill. On our starter kit, those have been combined.
Great. I'm rolling 6 dice.
So you're rolling 6 dice.
3 icons and an exalted icon.
Hell yeah. So we're not going to fuck around with the exalted icons just yet, but in future that'll be
4.
Very helpful.
Nice. Not 5. I did worse than the rules will allow in future.
No, I don't
care. This is fine. We got 4.
No. I'm going to give it to you.
Let's call it a
so
4.5.
We're going to add... With your additional 6, there's a system that we're going to get to later. We can do it now, called shifting, which basically means that if you get enough icons, if you generate enough icons to pass your check and you still have any left over, you can do various things with them, particularly if you roll an exalted. So because you rolled an exalted icon and you passed your check, you can spend it to either learn one piece of information, so you can ask me a question, or I can reveal a secret if there's a secret to be revealed. You can turn your success into an exceptional success, which just puts a little bit of extra joy on it. You can reduce the time required to do a thing. Obviously, that doesn't matter here, but if you were trying to pick a lock or cast a spell, reach into the psychic warp and do a thing, you can reduce the time needed. If you're in combat, you can use that to add an additional damage dice, or you can shift it into a point of glory, which are kind of like story points in some of the other systems we've played that you can spend on various things. So it's up to you. You can basically bank it as glory, or you can spend it to bump this up.
I'll spend it, and just why? Because he's just trying to math out why the hell am I here? I work for this flotilla. I get dragged to the book moon. Everything smells like books, which is miserable. Why do you need a psychic for this? This is just what he's trying to math out.
Yeah, all right, great. So you immediately realize that several of these books cover banned topics. And you are particularly hooked. You kind of get a little psych or spidey sense blast from one titled Invocations of the Emperor Indignant, which really, that one, a lot of these are giving you little pulses. That one is it's got some psych or nonsense.
Okay, and this lady works for the flotilla. This is all
so she's the headline.
I'm here as an agent of this.
Yeah, so she's brought
flotilla.
you with her, saying that she needs assistance in kind of cataloging and assessing these books. I think with your exceptional success, safe now that you kind of get that hint, safe to realize that she wanted your ability to kind of suss out which of these books is actually.
Okay, so she's buying at this.
She's buying.
auction,
Yeah, she's here to purchase.
Buy that one. That one right there. That's the good one.
Wait, so the Invocations of the Emperor Indignant?
Yeah, sure, that one. Buy that. That's going to be the good one.
Can I ask why?
Feels like the good one. I did a whole thing. It's good. Get that one.
And she just kind of smiles and says, "Thank you, Somnus. This is exactly why I was hoping you would be here. You have done a good gig."
Great. Can I go now?
She said, well, we're on. I have to go win it in the auction. Also, we're on the planet, so no. But you can go wait in the other room.
Awesome. And Tom, is there food in the other room?
Yeah, sure. There's the auctioneers. It's like the equivalent of if you go to a mechanic and they have a little shitty coffee station. It's like that, but they've got little snacks, and you can tell it's meant to be everyone gets one little donut. But if you want to go ham on that,
yeah, I think he's going to go ham on that. And then Tom, I would like to cast Chameleon on myself. So I have psychic abilities. Somnus has psychic abilities, and one of them is Chameleon, which is to allow myself to blend in with my surroundings using a psychic power.
Okay, cool.
How do I do it?
So to cast your ability, you usually need to roll a psychic mastery test.
Okay.
Against the difficulty number set for
which is
the
5
thing.
for this power.
Yeah, so you need to cast above a 5.
Okay, let's see what happens. Psychic mastery for me is a 7. This does not bode well, but I'm going to do it anyways because I'm Somnus. This again does not bode well. All right, I got 3 successes.
All right, yeah, you 3 successes against 5.
Yeah.
So what does chameleoning look like for you? Is it just people's eyes trace over you?
Sometimes people's eyes trace over. If it's a really busy area where like he would still clearly be seen, then he looks like someone who belongs there. Kind of like they just look at it and see like a uniform they want to see and ignore it.
Okay.
And then if he passes this, it adds to his stealth bonus.
You don't, so it doesn't.
Okay, so then it's just regular stealth. He's just rolling them bones.
Yep.
He knows if they've got this mechanics area, but it's a rich person's house. This lady's definitely got a kitchen. And there's going to be good food there, and nobody's going to be watching the kitchen during...
Stay
I think your
alive.
motivations now.
Yeah, during
He
this
knows
thing. And
what
now,
he needs.
listen, I know like 3 things about myself, and improv rules say it's going to be this. So he basically wants to try to sneak out and get to the kitchen and eat the good food.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead and roll a stealth, please.
I like to imagine that if it doesn't work, he just thinks he's invisible.
I 100% agree. Yes, that's
Okay.
That's why I was asking what it looks like. 'Cause it's like people will just not look at me, and then just like walks through the crowd like, "Who's that guy?" It's like, oh shit!
I got 2 successes, but they're both 6s, so 4 successes or 4 icons.
4 icons, great. Okay, very good. So I forgot that Exalted only comes off of the Wrath die, but that's fine.
Oh, then don't worry about
No,
it.
no, yours is still good. Everything's
Oh,
still fine.
okay.
It's good. This was a note to me earlier. Also, as we're learning the rules, I'm going to correct myself so that if anyone's trying to learn the rules while listening or watching, they're not
No,
like,
that makes sense. So
"I got
these 6s are just 2 successes.
Still count as 2 successes.
Oh, they still count.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, but because they weren't on your Wrath die,
Oh,
they
don't
turn into
shift things.
Yeah,
Got it.
Yeah. So the Wrath die is basically in Vampire the Masquerade terms, it's like your hunger die. So it's the die that adds a lot of narrative flair in terms of it can cause big success or big failure. We haven't included that die yet because they specifically say we're get
getting
everyone used to it, and then we'll add the crazy
yeah.
die. So okay, so your stealth is a success. So your
Somnus has one hand against his temple and it's going like he's focusing really hard even though the power isn't working. Like the warp is open, but it's just making his head glow a little bit and his wide hair is blowing in the wind. And then you just see him eating the most expensive steaks.
well, on your way to the like you correctly trace the snacks back to where they're coming out of. As you make your way, you actually bump into someone who bounces off you with and
I work here.
You see. The figure is there's a lot of people in here. Like this is a big auction. There's also just a lot of people here to like.
It's an estate sale, so you're going to have a bunch of people walking off the property.
You bounce off this person. They're in like a threadbare robe. Clearly look too poor to actually buy anything at this auction, and they mutter, yeah, me too." And just catch a glimpse of slightly like sickly looking skin before they sort of do the Jedi hood
Oh,
bump.
bam. I want to hit this dude with a sign of science. I got to read this. Sickly. That sounds like one of my people. We are sickly. And this guy must be looking for food, too.
Well, he's coming the other way. He may have just got his food.
Oh, my meat. He takes it really personally.
Yeah, go ahead and roll.
Okay, so I have a difficulty of 3, but I am rolling a psychic mastery. So the odds are better for this one.
I like to imagine it's another
I say
Danny
that,
DeVito.
Oh.
I got 2, so I fail in my sign of science. I'm like, I'm so hungry.
You as you worry about your meat, suddenly you break out in a cold sweat as you try and use your psyker powers, and you just similar to like a sound of static just kind of rises quickly in your ears. And you feel your stomach grumbling and burbling, and you have to fight the urge to throw up the food you just earned at the table. Obviously, the good food is still to come. By the time you recover and kind of blink out of it, the man in the robe is gone, and the food all looks gross to you. You can tell that nothing's changed, but like you looking at it, you just get a little bit queasy. It's like looking at that one item at the buffet that you're like, this shrimp should have been sitting out. Why you do?
He's going to make himself eat some bread, but he won't like it.
There's a strange tint to this shrimp.
Yeah, exactly.
Can he find this weirdo dude?
No, he's gone. He disappeared into the crowd.
Oh no, you've lost the boss fight.
Now I got to take bread back to the auction room.
So you make your way back, and Arentina has purchased the book as well as some others. You can tell that she picked up some of the ones that weren't
Like
ones
cover,
you
yeah, makes
identified.
sense.
Yep. So she's kind of got her purchase in a little like take home bag, and the auction continues, and she just looks at you and says, Forgive me, Somnus. I'm not particularly familiar with psychers, but you look rather ill. Did you eat some? Should I not eat the snacks?
I think they're okay, but like, there's a guy. He looked sickly. And he had a hood. I didn't like it.
And she just kind of like nods at you, and you can tell, like, you know when the attention light goes out in people's eyes.
Oh yeah, he's used to that.
Yeah. She says, a man in a hood. Well, that is excellent.
No, we gotta go.
I shall mark that. Yes,
you got the book. We gotta
do.
Go.
We need to rendezvous with the ship. But yes, I will tell people about them.
No, we gotta go now. Like, this guy felt bad. I didn't like it.
Very good. And she, you and she disappear. However, she did kind of put in a good word for you with.
Hey, fucking nail it.
With Feronius.
Some pride to celebrate.
Yeah, and as a result, when your summons came to kind of become anointed as one of his agents, specifically, she spoke very, very highly of you. The exact words were very weird, but very effective.
Yeah, so you cut back to Somnus sitting at this table, and he's like, yeah, he's eating like a turkey leg with one hand, and then he reaches over and he picks up the soup, and he's like, I do a good job. You know, if you drink soup at the same time you eat meat, you make a stew in your mouth. And then he just starts pouring soup into his mouth alongside the meat. He's like, that's a good chap. That's a good chap.
And Galba just shakes his head and says, if you wanted stew, I could have had it made. We have excellent stew on board. And you see you see Lord Radovar just kind of look over at you when Galba's like, we make a good stew, and he just like shakes his head and gives you a little thumbs up.
That guy.
And Alouette is actively not looking at you anymore, and instead turns to you, Del, to your character. And you hear her speak with a whisper quiet voice that doesn't seem to be touched. Like, it's coming out of all the speakers, but it's like she's away from her mic, saving her voice for the opera. And she says, I would perhaps enjoy your story more than this base man's. Tell me, what brings a sister of battle aboard our ship? And Del, who is she referring to? Who do we see? And yeah, who are you playing?
It's Sister Anoria, and she is a big, strong, tough lady. She's wearing the power armor. She has the vestments of the Order of our Martyred Lady, which typically is the black armor with the red vestments. But she has served a long time in the Sisters of Battle. She's in her late 40s, and she's worked towards helping other sisters come up and teaching. And so her vestments are reversed, where they're white on the outside and red on the inside to show her additional higher standing. And she has the perfectly coiffed hair. Everything about her is shiny and well-kept. The only thing that shows that she's seen battle is she has a huge scar from the top of her head down over her nose and onto the side of her jaw that shows that she's seen some shit. But she keeps everything on her person in extremely good condition. She's got her chainsword and her bolt pistol. And especially on this pleasure cruise, basically, she's had tons of time to pray and to keep up with her appearance. So all of that is just pristine. So she looks very shiny sitting at this table.
Amazing. And before you can say a word, Galba steps in and says, oh, Lady de Mornay, you are speaking to Sister Anoria. And I mean, we hardly need to justify the presence of one such as yourself aboard the ship, but I should tell you all. And he kind of leans in conspiratorially in a way that someone talking to a full table does. And he says, I believe the sister would likely be too humble to tell us this story without prompting, but Commander Morstan will not stop talking about the service she rendered on Enoch. So, Morstan is checking the security for, and like looking up, you can actually see the commander of the armsmen aboard the ship is like, he's not at the dinner yet. There's a chair for him, and you can see that he's like checking the doors. You can just kind of see him out in the hallway. You hear him like yelling at someone to keep better eye on the entranceway. And Galba just kind of like dismissively waves his hand and says, I'm sure he'll be along once he does his little checks. He loves playing soldier. But please, in the meantime, before he gets here and makes it boring, and plain. Sister Anoria, please tell us what happened on Enoch. And Anoria's eyes drift back to the shrine world of Enoch, which is a site that a lot of pilgrims within the Gilead system go to. However, it has been increasingly dangerous since the cutoff from the Greater Imperium. Unfortunately, in kind of the greater lore of Warhammer, like, faith is a wonderful thing, but is also just like a fucking open window that chaos can climb through.
What?
So, not that anyone in the Imperium knows that, but having been cut off, it is a dangerous place. And also with pilgrims arriving, it is a particularly easy place to pick off some very high-level targets. So Enoch has been kind of a constant concern. And Anoria, you're from the Gilead system. Are you from, is Enoch where you think
Enoch is her hometown, home planet.
So you're well acquainted with it. You were aboard the Herald when there was word of a rock landing on Enoch. Unfortunately for the people of Gilead, the rest of the enemies of the Imperium have not slowed their advances on the sector. And so it was with great horror that you learned that an orc rock had landed. So orc rocks are basically hollowed out asteroids with an engine strapped to them because, they don't need a way out. They just need a way in. So this had crashed, and an established orc presence on Enoch would be devastating. The planet is already under such stress from cults and other things that having orcs just running around would be absolutely no bueno. And so Commander Morstan of the Herald, Morstan Fife, who runs the armsmen, which are basically the soldiers on board the ship, did the math, realized that the Herald was close enough to assist, and immediately enlisted you, Anoria, to help, knowing the local geography, knowing the planet, and knowing that the armsmen would be hard-pressed to make much of an impact against an orc raiding party, but perhaps supporting a Sister of Battle would be able to. And so you left your period of martial penance and prayer in the shrine of Saint Berthal aboard the ship in order to assist Fife in assaulting the orcs with a complement of Sister novitiates.
Yes.
Yep. That's how it's pronounced. Who are on the cusp of completing their training. This seemed to you to be a very useful training exercise. The armsmen were surely going to be wiped out, but for novitiates, this is a good test of mettle. Plus, this is a worthwhile expenditure of the effort to be able to save Enoch and to test against an actual opponent, particularly knowing chaos is on the doorstep. Like, better to train it against an orc so you can fight the great enemy later. So you were accompanying a unit of armsmen led by Fife's lieutenant, Emsley Bardot, and your novitiates. So the armsmen are there to engage the orc force kind of broadly.
Definitely.
You're there to break the orcs and use them as kind of they need to survive long enough for you to do your job, basically. So we cut to the eve of battle. And as a teacher, as someone who trains soldiers, you can tell that Bardot is in just deeply, deeply over her head as she marches out, face very pale, wearing a battle uniform that still has the creases in it. Like, you can tell that all the armsmen from the ship, they're used to on ship actions, but this lieutenant may be excellent in peacetime, not built for war. So you can see her kind of standing up in front of her unit. And you're also deeply aware of the novitiates behind you who are also observing this, and the need to teach your fellow sisters how to lead the lesser mortals of the Imperium, lest they go astray. So Bardot stands up and says, hi everyone, hello. This is the day we've all been training for aboard our luxury transport vessel. A day when we can stand strong against the enemies of the Imperium. And she just looks at her hand and says, the orc threat are... And she's clearly smudged something. She's like, infernal? Oh, inferior in all ways to the Emperor's mighty children, and thus we will prevail. When in doubt, remember, you have a gun. you should use it to shoot the orcs. If you cannot shoot the orcs, you could consider stabbing them with a knife. But be warned, they are apparently very good at stabbing back. And you can just tell these troops are already ready to break before they hit the battlefield. So it's up to you whether or not you want to intervene.
Anoria's going to step in and say,
Well, I'm going to need you to roll a check before you start talking.
Yeah. Come on.
Oh, no.
Because I want to see what you say and how well you say it. So let's go with a leadership, please. So this is leadership and will to encourage and inspire Emsley and her troops.
Okay. It's poopy. Can I use a token and re-roll some of them?
Sure can.
The failed ones?
Yeah, so you can re-roll all the failed dice from your
This
check.
token is a glory point?
So this is a wrath point.
Wrath point, got it.
All right. Well, I used my wrath point,
Thank
and
you.
I got 2 successes.
2 successes. All right. What do you say to Emsley and the troops?
I'd say walking up, she gives a tiny clap, and it's, "Thank you for the rousing speech, Lieutenant. I see that your troops are very set and ready and have been well practiced in shooting. They won't need to use their knives. That is for me and my novitiates. You will follow in the back line and lay covering fire, and we will walk deeply into the fray. No one needs to be afraid this evening, though I see it in your eyes. There's no need to be afraid when the Emperor has sent us here, and we are going to lay waste to this Xenos threat and bring back glory to this shrine of Bertal."
And Bardot nods and says, yes. And just very quietly, she's like, "Sister, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be afraid. I'm so sorry. We'll do it. We will. Yes, you heard this, sister. We will crush the orcs. We were built for this, and in the Emperor's name." And they all like raise their guns in a charge and a salute. And the novitiates, one of them just kind of leans into you, Anoria, and says, "Sister, I don't mean to doubt, but are they not simply going to be pulped by the orcs?"
She shakes her head and looks at the novitiate. "Whatever the Emperor wills will happen. But Emperor willing, we will not fall, and you will learn your stripes."
And she nods and says, Of course, sister. I wasn't worried about us falling." And she just like locks her gun. And you hear a mighty wah rise up exactly over the field, and suddenly just orcs start spilling out of everywhere. The armsmen rush to combat and begin to just get fucking destroyed. They're just like they're firing.
Stay back.
They've never had to fire at. They rush into a firing line and drop. But you see Bardot encouraging them forward. You failed your check, so she is deeply ashamed of her cowardice, and as a result is overcommitting. She's doing that thing where she's doing the action hero thing where she's like firing her rifle as she runs forward, so she can't aim for shit. There's a lot of like very cool looking stuff going on, but not a lot of hitting. It's very stormtroopers in Star Wars, or like anyone at paintball for the first time, just firing at orcs. Also moving targets. Who knew they were hard? That said, you've got a job to do, and regardless of what happens to the armsmen, they don't really matter. What matters is you cleanse this orc threat. So you need to lead the novitiates forward. It's up to you whether you want to use ballistics or weapon skill for this check. So if you want to run in with your melee weapons, lead them in a mighty charge against the orcs, you can use weapon skill, or if you want to open fire, you can use ballistic skill.
I'm going to do the weapon skill because I'm doing my exact plan, which was supposed to be a firing line back there and us chopping line up here, but we're still sticking to the gun.
Yep.
All right.
Just because they couldn't follow orders doesn't mean you can't.
I feel like the orcs are loving the action hero stuff, though. They're like, "That's some good dagger."
Yeah, they're like, "These are the best humanity has to offer. Fight!" I bet that's the Emperor.
Big short him.
Oh my God, the dice hate me. I've got 3 successes, and one of them's a 6.
That's 4 successes.
4 successes.
Oh, okay,
Yep,
I'll take
yep.
that. 4 successes.
Hell yeah. All right, so you lead your novitiates with exemplary faith and competence against the orcs. As to Ryan's point, just because the armsmen don't know how to follow orders doesn't mean you and your team don't. You fight your way forward into the orc lines, having to push past armsmen who are getting in your way. Finally seeing a massive armored orc clanking forward with an oversized gun and just a rack of trophies on spikes over its back that just like is stomping through the field. And Bardot leaps in front, rifle out, and just yells like, "Suck las cannon, asshole!" And just starts firing flashlight rounds into the orcs' like big tummy armor. And he just steps forward, flips the gun up like a club, and just doesn't bash her sideways, just bashes her down. And you just hear the crunch of her ribs and hips as she is crushed under this gun and begins to scream. And he holds up the gun and he goes, "More red, good." Flips it around and just starts like emptying it as you run. What's your dramatic run up and kill moment here?
That's perfect, because as that orc is swinging down and then looking at the gun and the corpse of Bardot is there.
Oh, she's still alive. She's in tremendous pain.
Well, using this tremendous pain lady while she's on the front line, Anoria is going to run up and use that lady as a ramp and step up and jump up with the chainsword and bring it into the orc's neck.
Hell yeah. So yeah, you chop into the orc. He like his green blood starts. Green blood, black blood?
I think they have red.
It's not clear canonically.
Yeah,
Because they're mushrooms.
His blood
depends on where they're from. It smells like fungus.
Yeah.
We know that.
His blood gushes onto the gun and he goes, "That's good." And he collapses sideways. As soon as the other orcs see their leader go down, they begin to break, not because of a lack of desire to fight, just because they all realize they could be the biggest now. So there's just enough distraction that your novitiates just like slam into the line. And continue to fight. Yeah. The surviving armsmen get to Bardot and start like immediately jamming her full of combat meds and wrapping her up. A quick glance just as you ride the orc down suggests that she will survive. She'll just be pretty banged up for the foreseeable. But
and Anoria will just turn back with the chainsword revved and blood everywhere, and sisters and guardsmen, chase them until they are dead and cleansed from the shine world.
And the armsmen all look to each other, nod, and you see them now fall into like just a classic Terminator line where they're just walking forward with kind of guns up, just blasting away to keep the Frank Reynolds theme going, and just laying waste to the orcs.
I looked up the blood thing. Apparently, it's referenced in Flight of the Eisenstein as being so dark a red it's practically black.
Oh.
Nailed it. Nailed it on the second go. First time I thought green, but it's a different thing. So you lay waste to the orcs. Bardot is looking like glassy-eyed because she's full of drugs. But also like, it's that classic Imperium thing where that a lot of like the videos and stuff do, where it's just like she's looking up at you, standing over her, like sun behind you, soaked in orc blood, revving a chainsword, like leading the charge. And you can see the glimmer of faith awash in her eyes. I'm going to give you a point of, give you a wrath point for managing to free this shrine, which would have been real bad.
Yeah. And she'll look down at Bardot and just say, "Do you see? The Emperor has protected you, so next time you can listen to orders."
"Yes, ma'am." And she just like raises a hand and like puts it against your leg, which you shake off and walk away because like whatever, you're not here for that. So upon returning to the fleet, Morstan Fife received kind of the orders both from Bardot and from the armsmen who were assembled, and actually paid you a personal visit. And he's like a Josh Brolin looking motherfucker, just like a very kind of like Josh Brolin circa Cable, so just like buzzed, very like stout, and just arrived at your door. It just in like still in his uniform and clearly like on the job, but he said, "Sister," and he kind of like gets down to one knee and kind of like nods his head down. He's not really sure what the procedure here is.
Yeah. But and that's the commander?
Yeah, this is Commander Morstan.
Commander Morstan, bless you. What can I assist you with?
Thank you, sister. And he stands and kind of stands at attention and just says, it would have been a grave insult to the Emperor were we not to free Enoch from the Orc threat. And I doubt that anyone else in the flotilla would have made it there in time. If it was not for you, your novitiates, and the discipline you brought to the armsmen, the Orcs would no doubt have run amok on Enoch, and it would have fallen. I have come to express my deep apologies for the actions of my lieutenant. She is clearly not quite ready for battle, though it seems she has learned a lot from you. She is currently in the process of recovering. She will take some mechanical implantation to be back on her feet, but she will do so as a smarter, more capable soldier, and I have you to thank for that, and for ensuring that the rest of my people, as many as could be saved, were.
Your men fought well and did not break even as it seemed dire, and I would not worry about your lieutenant. The only way that you can fail the Emperor is to die and stop trying.
And he smiles a little bit, and he says, Sister, if we had more like you aboard this ship, we could do wonderful things. Thank you very much. I shall ensure that Lord Veronius hears of your heroics as well as your wisdom. And he did, because your abbess reached out not long thereafter saying that Veronius had requested you personally to join. And aboard the Herald, you have received a bit of a hero's welcome. All the armsmen, they treat you with great respect, a little bit of reverence, but more so than just a Sister of Battle walks among us. Like, the name Sister Anoria is known because Morstan has clearly been kind of spreading the word as a, like, you can see people like straighten up a bit. They work a little harder when you're around. And yeah, you as a teacher, you think quite clearly know this is that kind of behavior. So your novitiates aren't with you aboard the ship, to be clear. But the ship is very favorable towards you.
Great. And Sister Anoria in general doesn't seem super hard-ass. She can be hard-ass in battle, but even walking around, looking at those people, she has very pleasant attitude and face and the way she holds herself, and she definitely gives people nods and tiny prayers and that sort of thing.
Nice,
so she's
nice.
pretty chill.
So what version of that story would you have told at the banquet? Would you tell them the whole thing, or how does Anoria tell that encounter?
Yeah. Anoria would come back to that. It is not my glory in battle that needs to be recited, but the glory of the Emperor and all of his people. There are many guardsmen, novitiates, and myself who helped defend planet Enoch, and I hope it remains as such, but I don't wish to take any of that story on myself. I wish only for you all to remain and continue to be safe, as the Emperor wills it.
And you can see Alouette de Mornay just nodding and smiling to this. This is perfect. This is exactly the response she wanted. She kind of like closes her eyes, and a sound fills the entire space. And it's a little bit like the THX thing in the theater, where it's just like, it just fills the room as she sings in kind of almost a multi-tiered amplified voice, like, in his name, and it just echoes outward. And she grants you a small smile, and like the captain is just applauding, says, "Oh, a private performance, incredible!"
Do a little clappies.
Somnus has cast dull pain on himself, so he doesn't have to hear this thing.
Yeah, and with that, she stands and says, "I must attend to the opera, but thank you for your grace, sister. It is refreshing amongst." She like looks at the Lord, who's still giving like a little like is plugging his ears. Says, amongst such mixed company, and then she just like drifts out of the room. Like, she is walking, but like she's doing that little like stutter step thing that kind of flows. Do you say anything to her on the way up?
She's starting to drift out, and Anoria realizes, like, okay, this lady feels that way. But Anoria will just say a little prayer to herself, sitting there. It's like, we are all equals and one together in the light of the Emperor. Bless us all.
Yeah, exactly, says Somnus as he takes the opera singer's wine glass and downs it.
Amazing. She exits, kind of crossing Commander Morstan, who gets out of her way. A little bit bashful. Like, she's stunning and ethereal in like a way that is deeply uncomfortable to just like a random guard guy. So just kind of a little flustered. And as she leaves, he nods to two armsmen to like follow her and make sure she gets where she's going. Okay. And he comes in, nods to you, sister, pulls out his chair, sits down, says, "You'll have to excuse me for being late. I had to ensure that security was safe." And then he looks to you, Spencer, and goes, "Although it would seem that is unnecessary if we have both a sister of battle and a space marine at our table."
Wrath and Glory Traitor's Hymn features our storyteller Tom McGee, along with players Ryan LaPlante, Borovic, and Spencer Hipwell. Special thanks to Cubicle 7 for supplying us with the Wrath and Glory starter set for this adventure. This episode was edited and mixed by Laura Hamstra, and the One Shots logo was created by Decapitated Markers at Decapitated Marker, that's MRKR. This show's theme music is Gothic Trip with Thunder Horse by Damiano Baldoni, and our ad breaks use the tracks No Control and Cheats by Jazzar, JAHZZAR, all available at freemusicarchive.org. For all things Dum-Dums and Dice, including merchandise and how to join our Patreon, you can visit dumdumdice.com or find us on social media at dumdumdice. That's DUMBDICE. I'm DJ One Shot 2.0. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button and show your love to One Shots.
Dum-Dums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time: Christopher Little, George Dolby, Richard Cranium, Gavin and Abby McDonald, Logan, Fire Unfriendly, Grandma Likes D&D, Alan, Stabby Stranger, Glitch Trick, Flynn1138, Alarain Okapi, Schrodinger's Pepper, Madre de Gatos, Lady Maiden, Garbo Ape, Locke, Sam Schaefer, Waffle Marine, Dagger Rain, Rob L, Dia De Los Hoodless, Squishy Werewolf, Remy, Funky Head, Nomad, the Wise Paladin of the Badlands, Accent Therapeutic Services in Florence, Kentucky, Lael, Shulzari, The Long Family, Jordan Oliver, Richard Wright, Brittany Fenwick, Alex Parr, Old Man Mojo, Dragonfly, The Body Barrelers, Megan Werner, A Man Out of Time, Curtis at FingerTechRobotics.com, Panda24NN, Shendra D, Your Homeboy Bones, The Gator Family, Ellis Hatch, Odigenous, Dan the Welshman, Afflicto Gaming, and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumdumdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.